What is going on, bottom line viewers? It is Kev Ol here with your Saturday video, and we are going to do the first of two-part series on predictions that I made during the preseason about what we were expecting for the 2017 NFL season. And there's some things I got right, and there's some things that I got really, really wrong. And we're going to go through what I went right and how I went wrong with my predictions. And we're going to do this as a two-part series. So part one this week, I'm going to focus on the AFC. Next Saturday, we're going to focus on the NFC, which is a bit more of a mess. I don't feel as bad about the AFC. I actually have everybody in kind of pretty good positions. They're not doing too bad. But the first team, well, I'm going to go backwards here and go from who I had as the number 6 seed on my list, which is the Kansas City Chiefs. And obviously the Kansas City Chiefs have done a lot better than what we have well, I don't know if they've done better than what we've expected, but they got off to a really great start with the big winning against the New England Patriots on Thursday to open the season. Then they knocked off the 7-1 Philadelphia Eagles, the only loss that the Philadelphia Eagles had this season. Then they knocked off the Chargers. Then they beat the Redskins. Then they had that game against the Houston Texans where they won 42-34. Then Alex Smith threw for 33 yards in the first half as the Steelers knocked off the Chiefs in a game that I felt was very important for the Chiefs. And then the Oakland Raiders won that dramatic Thursday night football game, 31-30. And then they won Monday night on October 30th, 29-19. So going into this season right now at this point, as they head in to face the Dallas Cowboys, they are 6-2. And they're doing better than what I had predicted, obviously in the sense that they're first in the AFC West, and they're likely going to finish first in the AFC West. Let's not diminish that. I think that's a 60 to 70% chance, unless there's a collapse. When we look at the schedule, I can't see that too much. The big struggle going into the season was, of course, Spencer Ware was going to be out for the year, so we don't know where the running game came from, and then we were surprised to learn of Kareem Hunt, who's had a great season thus far. He had a tough game against Denver, one of his worst games, and Kansas City's worst offensive performance was Monday night against the Denver Broncos generally, but they were able to find a way to win. They are dealing with injuries with the loss of Chris Conley, which I think has impacted them, and their defense is in the lower halves of the league in a couple of areas. But I think if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, Alex Smith is in the MVP conversation for sure. And you have a dynamic running back. So I think that you're feeling pretty good. So, and I feel pretty good about where I picked the Chiefs. They're higher than I had. I think where I missed was I expected another team in this division to be a lot better than I thought they would be, and that was the Denver Broncos. And I think Monday night was the telltale sign of maybe a little bit of a transition, where Kansas City overall is a more well-rounded team than the Denver Broncos. And I think Marcus Peters is one of the best corners in the game, and they've been able to have they're able to create turnovers and score points at times. And, right now they actually have after Dallas, they have a pretty good schedule at the end of the season here. They go on a bye, and then we're looking at off to the Giants, home to Buffalo, back to New York to play the Jets, home to Oakland, then you got San Diego, and then you got Miami and Denver. It's not unreasonable for them to end the season on a 6-2 to have a 12-4 record. I think is a reasonable expectation for the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is a team that's doing better than I expected, and will be in the conversation for a bye coming up at the end of the AFC season here. My number 5 team that I had was the Tennessee Titans. And yes, they're 4-3. Yes, they're doing pretty okay overall. Probably where I had them. If I was to be honest with you, that's probably still pretty okay here, as we're just pulling up the sorry, just give me one moment here. Yeah. But quite frankly, I also think I'm actually disappointed in the Tennessee Titans. To be quite frank and honest with you. Yeah, they had that big win earlier in the year. They beat the Seahawks. as big as that everyone thought that win was, it was only 33-27. It wasn't that huge of a win. Yeah, the Seahawks made a run at the end, for sure, but it wasn't that large of a win for what we were talking about, the Tennessee Titans. They lost to the Oakland Raiders 26-16. They had a really tough first half against the Jacksonville Jaguars and turned it around. And they lost to the Miami Dolphins. They got hammered by the Houston Texans. They beat the Colts. But they had to go to overtime against the Cleveland Browns. You have to go to overtime with the Cleveland Browns? Sorry. Oops. Blah. Now they're facing the Ravens coming in after a bye. So they're on a 2-game homestand against 2 AFC North opponents. Actually, their next 3 games are against AFC North opponents. The Ravens, the Bengals, and a Thursday night football encounter in Pittsburgh, which is going to be a telltale sign of what their season's going to be like. I think you can't do anything but the Tennessee Titans and feel a little bit disappointed in what they have. Yeah, I know Marcus Mariota has spent some of the year injured, but I think I really expected this team to come in, play some smash ball football, and run the ball constantly, and we haven't really seen that from them. We've seen it in a very inconsistent way. Their wide receiving core, I think we were expecting more from them with the acquisition, the drafting of Corey Davis and the acquisition of Eric Decker. We don't see that as going as well. And their defense isn't very great. Let's quickly look at the standings here. The defense isn't all that great in terms of things going on here. And that's also has been a concern for the Tennessee Titans going forward. And you know what? I'm not sure where I have the Tennessee Titans, if I still believe that they're going to be a playoff team or not. I'm kind of have to admit, yeah, I made the crazy prediction that they will dominate the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs, but I'm not sure that this is a playoff team. I know that Houston, we'll get into Houston in a moment here, but I think you look around and some of these other teams that I talked about this on the Thursday Night Football recap. The Jets are in this. The Chargers are coming back into this. There's a lot of teams in there. I think the Tennessee Titans, this next 3-game set with the AFC North is going to tell us a lot about what's going to happen. I think these next 3, I would actually suggest, are the biggest points of their season. And it's a must-win against the Ravens. It's a must-win against the Bengals, and I think it's a must-win against the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. They're 16th. They're a middle-of-the-road defense, which I think we were expecting a lot more from that. So, yeah, they're 4-3. But I think overall, I would have to say that this team has been a bit of a disappointment for the year. Let's look at number 4, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And look, to be realistic with the Pittsburgh Steelers here, we kind of expected them to be first place in the AFC North and in this conversation. I felt that the AFC North was one of the weaker divisions, and they were in good shape for that. They still have those weapons of Bell and Brown and Ben Roethlisberger, whether I like him or not. And looking at it so far, I'm pulling up the schedule here as we're talking. Looking at their schedule as we're here, they had that tough game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, in which Ben Roethlisberger threw 5 interceptions. Some thought it was time for him to retire. Others thought, well, no. Actually, they haven't lost since that game. They haven't lost at all. As a matter of fact, since Ben said he should have retired, they've been actually doing pretty good here. So, and we look at the schedule going here. I mean, they've got the Titans, as we mentioned. That's going to be a very interesting game. They've got the Patriots on the 15th. They got the Ravens at home. They won a big game in Baltimore. They also got the Green Bay Packers for Sunday Night Football Week 12. Whether Aaron Rodgers is back or not will be an interesting question. But they've won 3 in a row. Yeah, they lost to the Bears, but they've got, depending on your perspective, they got the Texans and the Packers, who both have lost their number 1 quarterback. So I think that they're going to be in the conversation for the bye, and I would maybe suggest that they're one of the teams that would need to get the bye, but that's an entire different video and entire topic time. The Pittsburgh Steelers are pretty much where I thought they would be in terms of this, probably a little higher in the standings than what I had them, But overall, I'm not disappointed in the Steelers. I think, again, they are what I'm expecting, pretty much, considering their division. Number 3, the Denver Broncos. And I'm shockingly disappointed. They started off 3-1. They started off on a roll. Everything was going really well. They had Trevor Siemian was on good pace. This defense continues to be number 1. And you look Monday night, they actually played very well on Monday night as well. And that defense played very well, number 1. On Monday night, it was Trevor Siemian and that offense that went and had some struggles here. But let's look at their schedule. And they got the Philadelphia Eagles coming up here, which is not a winnable game for them, I don't think. I mean, I think their defense can keep them in there, but it's not an easy game for them in Philadelphia. Makes it really tough. They snuck away with the win though against the LA Chargers. I keep calling them the San Diego Chargers. I'm not used to it yet. The LA Chargers. They came away with an escapable win there, 24-21. They dominated the Cowboys, but the Bills beat them, and the Giants beat them on Sunday Night Football, and then the Chargers beat them, and the Kansas City Chiefs beat them basically because Denver was shooting themselves in the foot. Now you've got Philadelphia, you've got New England. You're in a really tough stretch here that I think is going to put yourself in a telltale situation of where you're going to be in this AFC playoff picture. And you know what? I think this is the thing that I missed. I had higher expectations of Trevor Siemian. I had him as a number 1-ish, not a number 1 quarterback in the middle of the pack. Maybe I thought he was going to get in there, not top 10, but he's going to be a lot better than what it is. We have to talk about this. The 2 questions that is ringing in my head, what I've been thinking about the Denver Broncos, is John Elway overrated? And if it wasn't for the Cleveland Browns' poor drafting of quarterbacks, we would be having more of a conversation of the Denver Broncos' poor drafting of quarterbacks since John Elway. Yeah, they got Peyton Manning. That's absolutely true. But they got him, quite frankly, they were lucky to get Peyton Manning because the Colts were number 1. Had to get the number 1 pick, which was Andrew Luck. You released Peyton Manning, and they didn't win that Super Bowl that they won because of the Peyton Manning's outstanding play. There has been quarterback issues for a long time in Denver, and we don't really talk about this as much. But this Trevor Siemian thing isn't an anomaly in Denver. It's a symptom of a bigger problem. This team could have drafted in 2014 Teddy Bridgewater and Derek Carr and passed on both of them. Bridgewater was just after their pick of Roby. Yeah, you know what? They have a great defense, and I guess you want to identify yourself as a defense, but you do need a pretty solid quarterback in the NFL to get anywhere, and they don't have it. They are bringing back a guy they never wanted, and that the Houston Texans are paying to not be on their team to be their starting quarterback this week. I think that I overrated the Denver Broncos. There's a bunch of other teams people that did not have high opinion of the Denver Broncos. I overrated the Denver Broncos. I admit that. I don't think right now, I have to say, I don't think that I see them as a playoff team going forward. The number 2 team is the Houston Texans. And some things happened that I predicted would be right. Deshaun Watson would take over this team and would be the number 1 quarterback. I said that their offense was better than a lot of people realized, and they've been scoring 30 points the last few games. They lost 41-38 to the Seattle Seahawks last Sunday. The Hopkins-Fuller combination is a top 5 receiver combination in the NFL. If you can get them the ball, which we have to question if Tom Savage is able to do that. That's why I have to say Tom Savage, because Deshaun Watson is out for the year with a non-practice ACL injury. Is out for the year, which is a heartbreaking thing. I had him second because I really was a believer in this Houston Texans defense. They were getting J.J. Watt back. They were a strong defense last year. They lost J.J. Watt. They lost Whitney Merciless. And although Jadeveon Clowney is a beast, that secondary is missing a lot of pieces there. Boye, Jimmy Graham, Paul Richardson last week ran all over them. They got the running game going early, but they didn't keep it going, especially at the end. And I had to question the time management decisions by Bill O'Brien at the end. It's an interesting situation in the AFC South because when you're looking at the AFC South, I don't think we were not sure about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who beat the Houston Texans in the game 1 of the season, and I think set the Texans back in a good way and a bad way. In a good way because they were able to bring in Deshaun Watson, and in a bad way because they started off at a really at a slow part, but they have been able to get it together. But there's been a lot of controversy with the trade of Dwayne Brown because of the Bob McNair comments and because Dwayne Brown just wasn't happy there. This team is in a very interesting situation, and it's going forward. I will imagine it's going to be very interesting to see what the second half of the Houston Texans is. Is this team a fractured team? Is this team a team that's going to be galvanized by their trials and go through this adversity and stick in there? It's going to be very interesting. I don't have them. I wouldn't say that I see them in a bye, obviously. Playoff team, I think it's going to be very interesting. It's going to depend on a lot of different situations to see that happen. That defense needs to step up, though, if Houston is going to want to compete, obviously, without Deshaun Watson, who you may argue is an outside candidate, would have been an outside candidate for first half MVP. Just outside. Number 1, I had the New England Patriots. I think we were looking at the New England Patriots like everyone else, and we were having the questions of 16-0. Then Thursday Night Football, the opening game of the season, came along, and the Kansas City Chiefs beat them 42-27. And we started to maybe question the Patriots a little bit. Then they've had some struggles. They had a struggle against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and when Nick Nickelback kid missed 3 field goals, and you could have said one. The Buccaneers could have won that game. Then they had a tough game against the New York Jets as an example, but they still won. This defense was starting to give up yards. There's been 5 games or 6 games over 300 yards, but slowly but surely the Patriots have been getting it together. They've averaged allowed 13 points allowed their last 6 games, so their defense is getting stronger. But with all of the acquisitions and all of the stuff, I think we had higher expectations than the New England Patriots. I think we were reasonably looking at 7-1, although 5-2 isn't bad. I think that this is a team that has had to actually adjust and adapt on the fly on a number of different things, which is common for a Bill Belichick team. But I think we had higher expectations and we feel disappointed. I would have the Patriots number 2 in my power rankings of the AFC. That doesn't mean that I don't think that they can get the number 1 seed. I certainly think that they can. But I think that they got off to a slower start than people were expecting. And there's flaws with this Patriots team, but there's also good things with this Patriots team going forward. So in terms of where I picked the New England Patriots, yeah, I had them in this number 1 seed. I think eventually they probably will get that number 1 seed. The way things are wrapping up, if they end up number 3, I wouldn't be surprised. If they end up number 2, I wouldn't be surprised. But if they end up number 1, I wouldn't be surprised either. They're certainly in that conversation as they continue to be. And of course, they'll win the AFC East and will be a factor in the playoffs. And you can see them in the AFC Championship. I don't think anyone is disputing that. I don't think the Patriots are done. I think the Patriots have had to adjust a lot this season. So those are my thoughts. Those are my recaps of evaluation of the 6 teams that I had in the AFC. I'm just going to quickly look at the standings here and look at what is going on in the AFC in terms of standings. Who would be, of course, so the top 2 teams would be the Steelers and the Chiefs, and then you have the Patriots, and then you have the Titans in 4th at the 4 seed. I had them as a 5 seed, and then your wild cards would likely look like to be Buffalo and Jacksonville, or Buffalo and Jacksonville look like they would be the wild card seeds. So I have 4 of 6 that were playoff teams. I think you look quickly. Let's quickly talk about Buffalo and Jacksonville. Buffalo got punched in the mouth last night. They got bullied. They got bullied really bad on Thursday Night Football against the New York Jets, and I think that this tells me a lot. I'm very concerned if I was a Bills fan. Yes, they're 4-0 at home, but they're actually 1-3 on the road. They don't play well on the road, which is going to be tough for them. So I don't know where I see them. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a very interesting team. Great defense. We were expecting that. 4-2 conference record, too. But 1-2 at home, 3-1 on the roads. I think that's very interesting. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. I think that they're going to stick in this playoff race for sure. They could win the division. It's quite possible. But who knows what's going to happen. We're in for an exciting second half of the AFC season. Next week, we're going to talk about my NFC predictions, which I was way off. Like there's left field. I was on the foul pole. I was way off on the NFC. We'll talk about that more next week. Meanwhile, like and subscribe to the Bottom Line View. Thanks for listening. We will speak to you soon. Bye for now.